If you watched The Terminator in 1984, then traveled to the future and watched it again, you'd still swear it was from tomorrow. That's how incredible The Terminator looks 40 years later.
Not for about 40 years.
Who can forget the first time we saw Arnold Schwarzenegger's insides? He really was pumping iron as he hunted a stunned Sarah Connor, who after being stood up, was unlucky enough to be finally chased by two broke guys wearing stolen clothes. Later both led a team of soldiers against an alien, but only one returned in the future for the sequel. She picked the wrong guy.
I love you too, sweetheart.
From the start, both Kyle Reese and the Terminator drop in from the sky and immediately start tracking Sarah. Arnold violently steals clothes, Kyle shoplifts. Arnold kills for his guns, Kyle helps himself. They both snag cars, and while Arnold works his way through the phone book, Kyle cheats. By the time all three meet at the Techno Noir nightclub, it's pretty clear who's there to protect Sarah and who's there to kill her. Even so, the tension builds to a boiling point as the camera slows, drawing out every moment until shots are fired. From that point on, it's an adrenaline-fueled sprint with each chase more intense than the last. If you're looking for pure heart-pounding excitement, there are few films better than The Terminator. It made solid money for what's basically a sci-fi slasher flick. Think Halloween, but with a lot more muscle. James Cameron struck gold when he found the second most terrifying bodybuilder of all time. The first legend was unleashed in 1977. The Terminator was the product of a dream Cameron had while broke and sick with a fever, just being fired from directing Piranha 2: The Spawning. I guess he should be thankful he didn't dream about blue aliens or a sinking ship. Those visions come with a much heftier price tag. With The Terminator, he couldn't afford a full-blown futuristic epic, but that just forced him to get creative. He brought the future to the present and promised the studio not to shoot too many futuristic scenes. The movie itself had to use time travel just to exist. Low-budget filmmaking techniques ensure the Terminator still looks sharp and gritty, and a big part of that is thanks to the practical effects. Back then, CGI was basically non-existent. Skynet hadn't shipped laptops yet. Instead, they had Stan Winston, who made the iconic Cyberdyne Systems Model 101 endoskeleton come to life. The Terminator feels real because it is real. Winston had a team of 7 artists working for 6 months to create it. Winston also made a reproduction of Schwarzenegger's face for prosthetic work. The attention to detail to the look and Schwarzenegger's performance combined make his character one of the most iconic and recognizable characters ever put up on screen.
I'll be back.
They use stop-motion animation to make the Terminator move in later scenes, which, yeah, can look a little jerky. It's funny how you totally buy the effect when it's just a clunky endoskeleton, but you forget it moved gracefully when wrapped in a whole lot of Arnold. Either way, it doesn't matter, because by the time the endoskeleton shows up, you're already hooked. What makes the Terminator work isn't just the futuristic scenes. It's the tension and adrenaline packed into every moment in between. It's a relentless action film that, in its own way, reminds you a lot of The Matrix. The production of The Terminator was far from smooth. Most of the film was shot at night. Many scenes were shot without permits. Cameron and producer Gail Hurd had learned the low-budget ropes working for the legendary Roger Corman, and that scrappy guerrilla filmmaking approach works here big time. Tight schedules, night shoots, and minimal resources became the film's DNA, infusing the final product with an urgency that translates on screen. Cinematographer Adam Greenberg used handheld cameras for much of the action, giving the film an energy and tension that feels raw and immediate. In between, there are a lot of moments with very tight close-ups. Greenberg's work with lightweight Zeiss Superspeed Mark I lenses allowed for sharp shots in low light. He used low-contrast filters and ample amounts of smoke to mask out unnecessary aspects of the locations, as well as help fill light into the shadows. The film stock used was Eastman 250T 5293, which wasn't sensitive enough to shoot at night without the added help. The tungsten-rated film stock helps give the film a blue tinge that sells the ethereal atmospheric quality to its scenes. This look is one of the tropes of 80s filmmaking. Cameron knew how to use the darkness to his advantage, concealing the seams of the production while focusing on what made the Terminator a thrilling joyride, its incredible action scenes. Early in the film, the action is slower and more stylized, where slow motion is used. In contrast, the later action scenes are high-octane chases that keep the momentum going without overwhelming us. Compare that to films that have continuous high-octane action scenes without any rhythm, and you'll see the real genius of James Cameron is his mastery over the pacing. In one scene, just before all hell breaks loose, Kyle Reese watches a couple of pile drivers at work. Without us even realizing, the shot subtly shifts to chain tracks. Only then do we catch on that we've been transported to the future. It's also a great moment that shows us how fast the world can change. It makes a lot more sense today than it did in 1984. Ironically, Arnold wasn't all that excited about the project at first. He definitely regretted it later, not that he could go back in time and set himself straight, although his younger roided up self would probably terminate him on the spot. Brad Fiedel's synth-heavy soundtrack is a huge part of why the Terminator feels so futuristic. The soundtrack is mechanical, almost like the heartbeat of the Terminator itself, cold, relentless, and kind of creepy in a way that never distracts from the action. It gives the film this pulse that's always driving it forward, like the Terminator itself, unstoppable. Honestly, it's the kind of music you'd expect to hear if you time traveled to the future, which is where we still are. The Terminator was shot in mono. Yeah, they couldn't even afford stereo sound. Despite that, the sound design is still phenomenal. It's simple, stripped back, but effective. Just like everything else in this film, it's all about doing a lot more with less. Beyond its stunning visuals, the Terminator taps into some of our deepest fears about artificial intelligence. Skynet is relentless. This isn't just a story about a killer robot. It's a warning about humanity's growing dependence on technology that outsmarts us. And the real terror comes when that intelligence surpasses our control, turning the tools we created against us. The time travel element, born from budget constraints, also ties into the film's themes of destiny and inevitability. The future is bleak, but it's not set in stone. This tension between fate and free will drives the film, and it's what makes Sarah Connor's journey so relatable today. By the end, she's transformed from an ordinary woman into a fierce final girl, embracing her role in humanity's uncertain future. When The Terminator was released, it wasn't expected to do well. Orion Pictures, a studio behind the release, hardly spent money on advertising, but as word of mouth spread, the film became an unexpected box office success. In the end, the Terminator didn't just survive the test of time, it feels like it bent time. It looks like it showed up from tomorrow, swung by yesterday, and somehow managed to shoot you last week. That's exactly why it still feels like it's from the future, because in a way it kind of is. James Cameron basically sent us a cinematic postcard from the future wrapped in a killer robot slasher. And if you think The Terminator is impressive storytelling, go check out The Abyss. Cameron's got this magical ability to create movies that are both awe-inspiring and completely mind-bending. Seriously, the guy could make a movie about flying fish and people will talk about it. He's just got this instinct for tapping into universal stories that keep audiences across the globe hooked. Check out this next video. Even though it was made yesterday, you might be watching it tomorrow, or right now. Time's weird like that. Anyway, if you'll excuse me, I'll be back. Come on!